Hey, thanks for joining us. We know you're looking for a clearer picture, trying to really understand what happened with that terrible attack in Kashmir.
Exactly. It's one of those events that uh, demands more than just the headlines. We want to dig into it.
So let's start with the basics. The attack, it happened on Tuesday, April 22nd, 2025.
Right. And those first reports, you know how it is. They were coming in fast and, well, a little messy.
Yeah, figures were sort of all over the map initially. We heard from unnamed security officials. AFP mentioned maybe 24 fatalities, but no immediate official word.
That's typical. The Associated Press also had sources, two senior police officers, unnamed, saying at least 20 bodies recovered and maybe 36 injured. Some seriously.
So quite a significant number right from the start, even with the initial confusion.
Definitely. It points to something major even before we get confirmed numbers. Need to remember these are preliminary figures, of course.
And the location, South Kashmir's Pahalgam area. For anyone not familiar, we're talking about a really scenic spot. Meadows, glaciers,
Hmm?
very popular with tourists.
That's key. Pahalgam is a known tourist destination. And this hits particularly hard because, well, tourism in Kashmir generally had been seeing an uptick over the last year or so.
Right, there was the sense, maybe overly optimistic, that the worst of the militant violence was perhaps waning in the wider region.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So an attack like this, especially targeting tourists in a place like Pahalgam, it really punctures that narrative. It raises immediate questions.
So what do we actually know about how it unfolded? The reports say suspected militants opened fire on civilians.
And specifically tourists, it seems,
Yeah.
at close range, which is just brutal.
The sheer number of casualties reported so quickly, like you said, it suggests a very direct, intense assault.
It does. It wasn't something distant or indiscriminate in a general sense. It sounds very targeted, very deliberate.
The Indian Express had a quote from a senior police officer, again anonymous, saying something like 2 or 3 militants just appeared, opened fire indiscriminately at the tourists.
That suddenness, that randomness directed at a specific group, it's deeply disturbing.
And the reaction from local leadership reflected that shock. Omar Abdullah, the former chief minister, called it shocking beyond belief.
He also pointed out, didn't he, that the scale felt different from some other recent incidents targeting civilians, perhaps hinting at an escalation.
Yeah, it felt like he was signaling this was something worryingly different.
And the immediate response on the ground, authorities moving in.
Oh, yes. Reports of injured being rushed to hospitals and then a big search operation kicking off. Police, army, paramilitary forces involved trying to find the attackers.
Standard procedure, but necessary. Now, to really understand the gravity, we need that wider context, don't we? The Kashmir situation.
Absolutely. For anyone needing a reminder, this is obviously a region disputed between India and Pakistan, both control parts.
And there's been this long, tragic history of armed anti-Indian insurgency, really kicking off back in 1989.
Tens of thousands of lives lost over the decades. So this attack, while horrific in itself, slots into that much longer, much more complex conflict.
Right. And unfortunately, targeting tourists or pilgrims isn't entirely unprecedented in the region, which makes this even more concerning.
Yeah, the reports quickly drew parallels. There was that attack in June 2024, wasn't there, on a bus with Hindu pilgrims.
Yes, 9 killed, over 30 injured in that one. And going back a bit further, 2017, an attack on a bus coming back from the Amarnath Cave Temple, 8 pilgrims killed then.
So there's a pattern here, sadly, a very disturbing pattern of targeting civilians, visitors.
It adds a layer of deep concern about vulnerability and, frankly, intent.
And we saw pretty quickly reactions coming from the very top in India, Prime Minister Modi.
Strong condemnation, condolences, the promise to bring perpetrators to justice, reaffirming India's stance against terrorism. Pretty standard but important statements.
Home Minister Amit Shah echoed that, expressing anguish, promising tough consequences, and he mentioned plans to visit the region himself.
Right, to review security.
Mm-hmm.
That signals how seriously Delhi is taking this. It's not just a local incident in their eyes. It requires central government attention.
You know, there was also this interesting bit of timing mentioned in some reports. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance was actually in India.
Oh, right, on a personal visit, I think, visiting family.
Yeah, apparently met with Modi, too. It seems purely coincidental, of course, but it adds this sort of awkward international backdrop to the event.
It does draw more global attention, even if unintentionally. A major security incident happening while a high-profile international visitor is in the country. It just amplifies the focus.
And it keeps coming back to this point. The reports are calling this the worst attack in the region in nearly a year.
Exactly. And hitting right when tourism was showing signs of life again. That economic impact, the psychological impact, it's going to be significant.
You have to think about the chilling effect on anyone planning to visit and on the local people who depend on that tourism income.
Absolutely. It disrupts livelihoods, creates fear, and pushes back any progress made in restoring a sense of normalcy, even if that normalcy was fragile.
So if we try to sort of pull the main threads together here,
Hmm.
what are the key takeaways?
Well, first, clearly, a very deadly, targeted attack on tourists in a part of Kashmir that had seen some improvement in tourism. That's number one.
And it serves as a brutal reminder that the conflict's potential for violence is still very real, despite any lulls.
Precisely. The threat from militants persists. Second, the immediate official response: condemnation, search operations, high-level attention.
Right, showing the seriousness with which it's being treated.
And third, it really forces us to look again at the whole complex, long-running Kashmir issue. The history, the ongoing tensions, the tragic human cost.
It really does. Which leaves us with a difficult question, I suppose. Given this history, given the recent tourism efforts, what does an attack like this really signal about the conflict's direction, about stability?
It's the crucial question, isn't it? Does it signify a renewed offensive, a desperate act, a shift in tactics? And what does it mean for the people living there and for the prospects of, well, any lasting peace? It's something we'll be watching very closely.